Hello and welcome to Surviving Classical Music. I'm Andrew Byrne,
I'm Grace Newcomb.
Dr. Grace Newcomb.
I'll never get tired of that.
And today we're talking about pandemic fatigue. Bum,
Just
bum,
general
bum.
fatigue. General fatigue that's got worse.
Yeah. So, Grace, how are you doing before we start?
Very fatigued. How about you?
Yes, very fatigued. Yes.
I have coffee number 3 on the go.
Wow.
Double shot.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
for me,
actually
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's not actually wise for me. I would probably lose my mind.
So, is that how many shots have you had now? Once you finish this,
Um, I think that's the other 2 was singles, so that would be 4.
4. Man, sooner or later you're gonna have to start injecting it, right? Or like,
Sooner or later.
yeah, enema, coffee enema.
I've heard great things.
From who? From who?
Oh, midnight TV programs, that kind of thing.
I see. Yeah.
And how are
TV.
you doing, Andrew?
I'm okay. The gyms opened up in
Oh, very
Basel
nice.
today, and I went, and I feel so energetic. I took a power thirst. I feel like I'm just like, I'm getting a lot done today. And I think part of this, part of my general fatigue, let's call it that. Let's use the buzzword today. Part of my general slump in the last few months, I think, has also been a lack of exercise.
Yeah.
Mixed in with the social aspect. Yeah.
I can get behind that. I had to review some CD tracks that I recorded either 1 or 2 years ago. I don't remember. And it was a time when I was running a lot. And honestly, vocally, I was also fitter. I'm listening to it and I'm like, was I able to do that so easily at this time? Long high phrases. And then I remembered I was running regularly, getting out and about, just keeping my general fitness up. My energy levels were higher, everything, probably not on 3-4 shots a day. And yeah, I definitely think the exercise has an impact.
Yeah, so I to our listeners, I think one of the reasons why, I think there are 2 main reasons why we're talking about this today. It was my duty this week to come up with the subject of our conversation, and my 2 reasons are that, number 1, the last 3 weeks, really, I've had almost no energy for creativity. Like anything where you have to come up with an idea for anything. I have not had, it's like the door was locked. You just couldn't, and you didn't have the key. Like I just couldn't get anywhere with thinking.
Yeah.
And then on the second side, and which is a little bit more topical, for those people listening, I mean, not many people are actually in our circle who are listening, so there's no point in really talking about the details, but unfortunately, a musician within our circles made this post saying they were going to have a birthday party, and they were absolutely not going to follow any of the guidelines. And then there was a huge backlash against the post, and an apology followed, and so on and so forth. And I understand the frustration with the situation. Obviously, they feel, and I feel with them the problem with social distancing and generally avoiding gatherings whenever possible. But the danger, I think, in general today is that even though Facebook is now like the public square, there's always a record of what you say, and you don't know what might come back at you professionally because of what you might express in the moment.
I think this person was very much in the moment, and I think they weren't actually trying to stir up controversy. They were trying to say something tongue in cheek, but of course it's something that it's probably wise not to even make a tongue in cheek remark about it, because if no one can sense your level of sarcasm or your level of how much tongue is in your cheek when you say these things.
How much of your
online.
own tongue is in your cheek?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like a lot of people were saying online, it's unfortunate on both sides, and you can see that he wasn't actually trying to cause damage, but he had enough comments. There was enough backlash afterwards that they Um,
Or she, could be she.
he, she, it could have been, might have given it away there. They did write a follow-up post and say, oh, I really didn't mean to be disrespectful,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not, they weren't trying to be a conspiracy theorist. They absolutely weren't. We should probably make that clear. It was just maybe
Frustration
something that
with
was a
the
bit misguided.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. But
Yeah.
my response, the main person against this post, I think I how do you say? I sympathize with them in that you want to go to work and you want to be able to work when you can in safety, right? And
Yeah,
when someone
yeah.
says who you work with, someone says the rules essentially. I'm just going to do something normal no matter what the risk is, and anyone who wants to take that risk with me, go ahead. Then if you have to go and see them at work the next day, there's a problem, right?
Yeah,
So, and
yeah.
my comment on the whole thing was that I was just at a major concert where pretty much no one was following any guidelines whatsoever. And there was a big assumption that people were testing or whatever, but I don't know. Nobody ever said, "Give me your negative tests."
Well, I think what we saw with this post is that not many people did want to step in. So you had the post that was made, the misguided post, and a lot of us know this person personally, and know that he's not an evil doer.
Yeah, yeah,
This was bad judgment.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
really
yeah,
bad
yeah,
judgment.
yeah,
So you've got on his post, there were lots of sort of positive comments, or like an avoidance of negative
yeah,
comments,
yeah, yeah.
mostly. I'm talking very generally.
Yeah.
And then on a post that was sort of anonymously calling him out for making the post, a lot of people were saying, yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but I agree with you. So that was all happening on the on
Yeah.
the separate post, but it wasn't happening very much on the post itself. And the things that were said on the post itself were very mildly worded, and people were saying, I
Yeah.
don't want to be the naysayer and everything. And we've talked about this before. We all feel like that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be the one to stir the pot. And even if you do feel you have to be the one to stir the pot, you try to sort of take your daintiest teaspoon and just dip
Yeah.
in a way that offends
The least.
doesn't offend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's very brave of you to say that.
It's passive aggressive version for you.
Yeah.
Very brave of you to end your career in this way.
Exactly.
No, I'm just joking.
That's the thing is that it's not just a sort of political it's not such a, how do you say that? It's not just a sort of political thing to say, but it's also a safety thing, you know? And that's where it's like I mean, many of us don't make a political comment. Some of us do. I do for sure. But we avoid controversy also because our profession is on Facebook too,
Yeah, yeah.
and then doing that kind of double whammy of a post in frustration, that's hard, that's tough, when the obvious thing happened next, when a bunch of people were like, no, that's got to be tough.
Yeah.
Oh well. I mean, I understand. I totally understand the situation, And if we were having a normal spring, then maybe it could have been done outside, and then maybe nobody would actually complain.
But the other great thing happening now is that we are all entitled to 5 self-tests per 30 days in Basel, if you have Swiss health insurance. I think this is great. I have a rehearsal tomorrow with just 4 people, and we're not going to be sort of snogging each other for the whole day, but we're gonna all test with the self-test. It takes like 10 minutes. They say 15 to 30, but really quickly, and then that is a very strong indication of whether you have it or not asymptomatically.
So long as you really do, clean the pipes with your nose.
Oh,
right?
I was in there.
Oh,
I think I might have got my brain a little bit. Maybe that's why I'm so fatigued.
ouch.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. Yeah. But I think that's great, because then we can work keeping a distance, but we don't have to mask for the whole day and that kind of thing. You think like the distance is enough, and then I can sing without a mask, and it's the peace of mind as well. So if everyone comes with their kind of negative rapid test, that makes a big difference. So do it if you're living in Switzerland, then make use of that.
Yes, and one of the funny things about I mean, we can't go without making a comment on this, but certainly we should have somebody on who's an amateur choir conductor, because they've got some new rules, as we sort of open up, or at least, I don't know, temporarily, or it's just the beginning, I don't know. But amateur musicians can now start to get to perform together. And one of the things that I find very interesting, and is part of the Vera and Alice's job, what they've been showing us is that one of the new rules is that if you would like to sing or play a wind instrument in an amateur group that's rehearsing, can't have a concert, but you can rehearse. If you were going to do this without masks, then every member of the ensemble has to have at least 25 square meters of distance.
Well, they have to have. Yes, this is really
We need
funny.
a hockey
You
rink?
have to have 25 meters squared per person in your rehearsal space.
What?
So it's not like they have to be 25 meters away from each other, but that is a huge amount of space.
Huge.
Like, unless you're rehearsing in a cathedral,
Yeah.
how are you going to manage
And
that?
I think it tops off that you can't have more than 15 people
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
I think the rule for 15 people for an indoor event is still whatever the word is.
In
Applicable.
place. Yeah.
Yes.
But if you're doing all of this with the masks on, then you can have 1.5 meter distance.
I think so,
and
yeah.
whatever. But it's so funny, I think that was a real kick in the pants for so many around Christmas time, when they said that where the Swiss actually decided, okay, it's singing is bad, and so therefore there's no singing. You cannot sing, even if you go to visit a friend in their house, it's illegal to sing.
Yeah, yeah.
Such a nasty thing to do in the holiday season.
It's sort of bizarre. It really smacks of. I mean, at the same time, I don't want to sound like I'm against the regular.
Sure.
I know that they're doing their best. I know they're doing their best, but that particular restriction really smacks of 1984, where the proles are the ones that sing, and the non-proles, I don't know what they're called, if they have a name.
I don't remember.
But the people who are like controlled by the government, they're the people who don't sing. I know they don't intend it to come across like that, but you also know that that's what's going through a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you're even going to tell us we're not allowed to sing anymore, which is like the ultimate expression of absent-minded happiness, or, just a human state of being and not necessarily being stressed.
But it makes you wonder also if people, there was outrage from the music community a bit about this. But I mean, this really affects just regular people, and or civilians, as I call them. What I would imagine is that this is just one of those things where everyone kind of goes, yep, that sounds about right. And then they just close their doors at night and sing. If they really wanted to, they would do it. I don't imagine that there would be a moment on Facebook the next day after and be like, well, I was at a gathering the other day and people were singing and I was very uncomfortable with the situation. Do you know what I mean? I just don't imagine the people actually following those rules. I don't know.
I think we've got a bit of everything. I think we've got a bit of everything around at the moment.
Okay.
I think there's enough people who would take that dead seriously as well.
Okay. Yeah. It's just such a bizarre thing to control, But
it does feel strange, yeah.
Unless, maybe singing with friends is a very common pastime in Switzerland. Maybe it is.
Yodeling.
If it's become a law, if that's become part of the health regulations.
I think it's probably just it seems an obvious thing to crack down on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are the most obvious ways that breath gets transmitted? Like, I don't think we have to worry about people snogging strangers in the street.
Mm-hmm.
Probably doesn't happen as much as people singing together. You never know. Depends how fun your life is.
Yeah.
But singing is kind of the obvious. It's the obvious way that it seems an obvious way that breath gets sort of projected for sustained seconds or sustained periods of time. Yeah. Of course, people have come out with videos, aerosol stuff, where they say, well, actually, it's less than speaking if you do it professionally, and And I know that that's also true. Depends how you sing. It's just there's so many dependent factors. It's an easy one to sort of strike off and say, well, let's do a blanket rule.
Yeah.
Don't sing at the minute.
Yeah.
Because you can't say everyone come in for an audition and we'll test your air projection when you sing supercalifragilistic, whatever, and then we'll give you a permit to sing.
That's the name of the song. That's definitely the name of the song.
Yeah, that's the song that everyone has to audition with.
Supercalifragic, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but the choirs thing, I mean, I haven't yet had a message from my 3 choirs that I run in Basel, but I'm expecting one because of these new regulations, and see if we can start something, even if it's sectional rehearsals or. But I don't think any of them are going to want to sing with masks.
So
I think
at the moment for this season, effectively, you haven't had anything. There's been no activity.
Nothing. Yeah.
Okay, so I do know that speaking to some choir conductors, especially some who got in touch with me after we did the Sync Space episode, that there have been choir conductors who have been trying to do online rehearsals. Was that something that you had considered?
I really respect that. I don't know how they've made it work, if they have, because obviously this is all stuff that I talked about with my choirs when the restrictions came in, and we tried one thing which was a kind of organized, people would record their own parts with a metronome. I would give them the metronome track and I would sing along with them, so I'd record it for like sopranos, altos, tenor, basses, and they would theoretically sing it at home. I'd edit it all together and we'd have a choir piece by the end of the few months or whatever. But this doesn't work, or it didn't work in our case for a bunch of reasons. But reason number one is people join a choir because they want to turn up and sing together. And you can't replace that experience with an online rehearsal unless you've signed up for something specifically like that, like the Whitaker virtual choir or something.
Sure.
It's great if you sign up for it, it works. But all 3 of my choirs, they're there for the social contact and the singing with other voices. They don't want to be soloists. They want to sing in a choir. So any of the solutions we tried to find where they have to sing on their own at home into the microphone or the computer, there were a few people willing to try as a last resort, but most people said, I'd rather wait because that's not choir singing. That's not what I signed up for.
Right.
So we haven't had any further activity basically for the year. But I'm expecting things to slowly come back bit by bit. But I don't think any 3 of them, like I said, will do it with masks. So I think they'll have to wait a little bit longer until that gets a bit easier. We don't have cathedrals to rehearse in. So
is this something that, now going back to the theme of fatigue, if, let's say, you get a phone call from the one or all 3 or whatever of those choirs and they say, we want to get back to rehearsing, and putting aside the risks and whatever, do you feel that you have the energy now to just go headfirst back into it?
No. And that's not because I don't enjoy it, but I don't even have the energy to go for a coffee with somebody at the minute. So much as I love my choirs, I'm like already, because I know it's coming, I'm already trying to get myself back into the zone. And one of the biggest hurdles for me is that 2 out of 3 of them are in German, which is really good for me when I have energy. But that's one of the most energy draining aspects of those particular rehearsals, is that I have to be really concentrated on my language. The English spoken choir, I can do that with like lower energy reserves, and still do an okay job. But the 2 that require me to talk for an hour or 2 hours in German and direct this number of people and like keep my head in the game, I'm a bit worried about that. I'm a bit worried about it because at the minute I'm at I had someone write to me this weekend saying like, oh, we should be more in touch, and I had to write back and say like, I can't do it. Like, I'm sorry if I'm being rude, as it's nothing about that person, but I need to be switching off from gatherings and hanging out with people, or because I start zoning out. My brain just starts panicking about something else in the meantime.
Okay, so you are actually thinking about other stuff. It's not that like it's all you're just like blank.
I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to tell.
That's the thing is
I had
that
a
I
coffee with.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, carry
Sorry.
on.
Sorry. Sorry.
I did have a coffee with Mark, who crops up on some of my podcast stories, Mark Levon, the other day, and he was telling me something, but there was background noise where we were. And I found that I was like looking through him and nodding and smiling. And I had, at some point, I don't know if it was other thoughts or that I just couldn't hear him anymore. But then he said, you're not even here, are you? You're somewhere you're somewhere else. You can't even hear what I'm saying. And it was true. And he could see it in my face then. He could see that I was like couldn't cope. So going back to like 2 hour choir rehearsals in German where I have to direct
Yeah.
a group of people, I'm slightly freaking out, much as I want to get going again. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad at least
about
the
you?
story ended that Mark realized this, and not that he has to realize by listening to the podcast.
No, we had a laugh about it, but he could see it.
Yeah.
He could see like the rabbit in the headlights
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's been probably getting worse because I'm out of practice at spending prolonged periods of time with people now. It was always a problem for me, but now it's like I'm worse at hiding it.
I understand. Yeah, no, I sympathize, but I think my problem in general is, well, I guess it's similar, is that when I have this moment, as I had said at the beginning, where I feel like I can't be creative, where I'm sitting at the desk going, I have to do this, but I don't know what I should do, that I actually don't have any real memory, or I'm not really conscious of actually what's going on in my brain. It's not that I'm distracted by thinking about something else. It's actually something is happening, but it's just like fog. There's this brain fog which is there, and then 10 or 15 minutes later, you're like, oh, well, I didn't come up with anything. I should move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a very bizarre experience, but I feel like I've had this fog for, well, a long time, since 1 year almost.
But you don't think that you had hints of that before lockdown?
I don't think so.
You think it's come out of the woodwork now
Yeah.
because of the change of lifestyle and
Yeah, I think so. Because I certainly was always very productive. I always felt like I was working. And another thing is that I hardly ever took time to do nothing, to play a game or
yeah.
go out for no reason, And the pandemic hit, and then for as long as I had the energy, I worked. And then now, since probably 3 or 4 months now, there's a lot of time there where nothing really happens, in the day. Or things happen, but you don't need all the hours in the day, and they just disappear. But I don't know where. I've got no record. And I'm not saying that I should always be productive all the time, but it's this interesting contrast from 1 year ago, where for every hour of the day from when I graduated until the pandemic hit, which is about 5 or 6 years, I'm not sure, I was very productive. And then suddenly now, 1 year later, I'm like, oh, right, I have to do something today. I should do it,
But I feel like this is also, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like I've always felt that I'm a bit too busy. And I don't think it's always that I am genuinely too busy. I think it's just something to do with me, that I have like a lower level of, some people are superheroes. We know that, and we see them managing a million things at once. And I feel like I'm not the only one who thinks I used to be like that, and now I can't anymore. But actually, maybe we couldn't maybe it wasn't good for us in the first place. And then when you have a break from it, your body says, well, thank the Lord that you're doing less now, and I do not want you to start that again. And you feel overwhelmed at the thought of having to, vamp yourself up to that level of stress and work and activity again. A bit like discovering in your 20s or 30s that you have an allergy to something that you always used to eat every day. People who suddenly find they're allergic to bread or something.
Yep.
They ate it every day, no problem. Then they get a break from it for whatever reason, And then when they eat the next piece again,
Yep.
the reaction is there. And that's not because they've developed an allergy from cutting it out briefly. That's because their bodies realized how bad it was. You know, they've had a break from it and they've thought, please don't go back to that.
Yeah.
And the reaction feels more severe, or it is more severe, but for good reason,
Yep.
because it wasn't good for you in the first place. I feel a bit like the things starting to come back now. Some of it I might have a little bit of that more severe allergic reaction to, and a lot of it is the prolonged sort of, I don't want to say social contact, but where I have to direct people for a prolonged period of time. I realize now that it is exhausting for me, even though I kind of enjoy it and I feel like I'm good at it. But maybe it's the same. Maybe all of us have to look at the things that feel daunting coming back to them. If you can't wait to get back to your pre-pandemic work, that's a really good sign. If part of you thinks, oh, great, we're starting again, and part of you has a sort of nagging feeling of, actually, I don't think that's really good for me or for my stress levels, you know, maybe it's time to rethink as well.
Wise words, Grace.
I don't know. Now, I might just make everyone quit their jobs and then end up on the streets.
On that note,
I don't want that.
that's it. Quit your jobs. I'm protesting.
No, but check your histamine levels to the work that starts coming back. Check your gut feeling about whether you needed that break, because I'm having to do that with myself this week. And, well, you know, I think it will happen more in the coming weeks.
Great. Well, Grace, thanks very much for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me in my own apartment.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like an interview, but yeah. Thank you for hosting this podcast with me.
Yes, well,
I guess that's it.
I guess that's it. That's all, folks.
Bye-bye.